nodded. Thank you, that would help. His car was sleek and expensive, with leather seats that smelled new. As they pulled away from the curb, Maya gave him directions to her apartment complex on the edge of town. They rode in silence for several minutes before Elijah spoke. I never imagined you here, in Pine Ridge. All those years searching. And you were so close. Life has a strange way of circling back, Maya said, watching the city pass by outside the window. Do you believe in second chances, Maya? Elijah asked quietly, eyes fixed on the road. The question hung in the air between them, weighted with 12 years of separation and the possibility of reconnection. I don't know, she answered honestly. Some things can't be undone. But some things can be rebuilt, he countered. Different, maybe, but stronger for having been broken. They reached her apartment building, a modest complex that had seen better days. Maya felt a flush of embarrassment as Elijah pulled up to the curb, but his expression revealed nothing but warmth. Thank you for breakfast, she said, reaching for the door handle. And the ride. Maya, Elijah's voice stopped her. Whatever you decide about the job, I'm glad I found you again. Or rather, that you found me. His sincerity was undeniable, and Maya felt something shift inside her, a crack in the wall she had built around her heart. Good night, Elijah. Or, good morning, I suppose. Will I see you tonight? He asked. For your shift, Maya nodded. I'll be there. As she climbed the stairs to her third-floor apartment, Maya felt lighter somehow, as if a weight she had carried for 12 years had begun to lift. Mrs. Perez was at the kitchen table helping Lily with breakfast. Mama! Lily rushed to hug her, all gangly limbs and boundless energy. How was your first night? Maya hugged her daughter tight, breathing in the scent of strawberry shampoo and childhood innocence. Interesting, sweetheart. Very interesting. Later, as Maya tried to sleep while Lily was at school, her mind kept returning to Elijah's question. Do you believe in second chances? Perhaps, she thought as she drifted toward sleep, some endings were really beginnings in disguise. And perhaps some loves were strong enough to find their way back, even after 12 years of silence. Less than artifact ID equals storytelling underscore script, type equals text slash markdown, title equals part 2, a second chance at sunrise, greater than the following week passed in a blur of routine for Maya. Each night she arrived at Horizon Innovations, cleaned floors, emptied trash, and wiped down surfaces. Each morning Elijah waited for her with 2 cups of coffee and conversation that flowed more easily with each passing day. They avoided the heaviest topics, the years of separation, her financial struggles, the job offer that hung between them. Instead, they rebuilt familiarity through smaller moments. Childhood memories, books they'd read, places they'd seen. Maya learned about Elijah's company, his vision for ethical technology, his dedication to his employees. He learned about Lily's science projects, Maya's favorite students, the small joys she found despite her circumstances. On Friday morning, as Maya prepared to leave after their now customary breakfast, Elijah hesitated. I was wondering if you and Lily might like to join me for lunch tomorrow. There's this place by the river with outdoor seating and the best grilled cheese sandwiches in town. Maya tensed. Their morning conversations were one thing, private, contained, separate from her real life. But introducing Lily to Elijah meant something more, something she wasn't sure she was ready for. I don't know, Elijah. Just as friends, he clarified quickly. I know Lily is everything to you, and I'd like to meet her. But I understand if it's too soon. Maya thought of her daughter, of how her face lit up at the mention of space and stars, of how she'd never had a strong male figure in her life. Let me think about it. That evening, as Maya helped Lily with homework at their small kitchen table, she studied her daughter's face. Lily had Maya's eyes and determination, but the shape of her face, her expressions, those came from a man who had vanished without looking back. I met someone at work, Maya said carefully.
Closet and settled himself in the secondary bedroom that was normally reserved for his rarely used personal assistant. For reasons he couldn't fully articulate, he decided the woman's need for sleep outweighed his need for answers right now. Whoever you are, he whispered to the empty room, your problems can wait until morning. Eliza woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the distant sound of waves. For several moments, she had no idea where she was. Then fragments returned. The flight, the hotel, her brother's upgrade. But something wasn't right. The room was too spacious, too elegant to be a standard suite, even an upgraded one. And what was that smell? Fresh coffee, pastries, and something citrusy that made her stomach growl. She sat up, noticing a breakfast tray on the nightstand beside her. A silver coffee pot, steamed next to a selection of pastries and fresh berries, arranged with artistic precision. Beyond the tray, a decanter of what appeared to be fresh squeezed orange juice caught the morning light. Had James arranged this too? It seemed excessive, even for him. That's when she saw the man. He stood by the window, silhouetted against the Vancouver skyline, holding two porcelain mugs. Tall and lean, with broad shoulders tapering to a narrow waist, he had the quiet stillness of someone completely comfortable in his own skin. His black hair was cropped short on the sides but slightly longer on top, with distinguished streaks of silver at the temples. He wore tailored charcoal pants and a simple white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms corded with subtle muscle. Eliza gasped, instinctively pulling the throw up to her chin. The man turned and her breath caught. His face was a study in contrasts, sharp cheekbones and a strong jaw softened by gentle eyes. Asian features that hinted at Japanese ancestry, with eyes that crinkled slightly at the corners when he smiled. And he was smiling now, a small, reserved curve of the lips that nonetheless transformed his serious face. "You seem to need rest more than explanations," he said, his voice a deep baritone with the faintest accent she couldn't place. "Coffee?" Eliza's heart hammered against her ribs. "Who are you? Why are you in my room?" His smile widened fractionally. "Actually, it's my room. I'm Kai Nakamura, and you are—" "In the wrong room," Eliza whispered, the truth dawning with horrifying clarity. She glanced around, noticing what exhaustion had hidden the night before. The subtle masculine touches, a sleek laptop on a desk, a man's watch on the dresser, an expensive suit jacket draped over a chair. "Oh my God," she closed her eyes briefly. "I am so sorry. The key worked and I was so tired, and the hotel system has been glitching since their recent upgrade," Kai explained, walking over and setting one of the coffee mugs on the nightstand near her. "I've mentioned it to management twice." His calm demeanor only heightened Eliza's mortification. "I should go. Right now. This is beyond embarrassing." "Perhaps," Kai agreed, his expression thoughtful rather than angry. "But breakfast is already here, and you look like you could use the coffee." Eliza's instinct was to flee, to escape this humiliating situation as quickly as possible. But something in his eyes, a warmth, an openness that contrasted with his reserved demeanor, made her pause. "I'm Eliza Chen," she offered, accepting the coffee mug. "And I swear I'm not usually in the habit of breaking into strange men's hotel rooms." "I'm relieved to hear it," Kai replied, the corners of his eyes crinkling again. "Though I must admit, as far as security breaches go, this has been surprisingly pleasant." The coffee was perfect, rich and smooth with just a hint of cardamom. Eliza took another sip, using the moment to collect herself. "Most people would have called security," she observed. Kai settled into a chair across from the bed, cradling his own mug. "Most people haven't spent 3 days at a technology summit surrounded by people who want something from them. Your presence was refreshingly straightforward." "You're at the Global Tech Innovation Summit?" Eliza asked, the pieces falling into place. "Wait, Nakamura. As in Nakamura Innovations? The AI healthcare systems?" He inclined his head slightly, neither confirming nor denying. "Your adaptive monitoring system saved one of my patients last month," Eliza continued, professional excitement momentarily overriding her embarrassment. "The algorithm caught a medication interaction our team missed. I work at Singapore General. I'm a trauma nurse. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us." Now back to the story. Something shifted in Kai's expression. A new interest, perhaps respect. "The system is still learning. We're collecting feedback from medical professionals to refine the algorithms." "Well, consider this my feedback. It works." Eliza smiled, then remembered her situation and blushed again. "Though I usually deliver professional opinions through more conventional channels, not while trespassing. I prefer to think of it as an unconventional focus group." Kai offered her the plate of pastries. Croissant? The hotel has an exceptional pastry chef. The normalcy with which he treated this bizarre situation was strangely comforting. Eliza accepted a croissant, its buttery aroma making her realize how hungry she was. "So what brings a Singapore trauma nurse to Vancouver?" Kai asked. "My niece's baptism. My brother James lives here with his wife. They had their first baby 3 months ago." Eliza tore off a piece of croissant. "I couldn't get away until now. The hospital's been short-staffed." Kai nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Healthcare professionals, always putting others first," says the man who let a stranger sleep in his bed while he took the guest room. Eliza countered. His lips quirked. "Perhaps we share that particular flaw." They fell into surprisingly easy conversation. Kai asked thoughtful questions about her work, showing genuine interest in the challenges of emergency medicine. Eliza found herself describing difficult cases, the emotional toll of trauma nursing, and her recent consideration of a position in pediatric care. "It's a different pace," she explained. "After 10 years in trauma, I sometimes wonder if I need a change." "Change can be clarifying," Kai offered. "I spent my 20s coding for 18 hours a day, sleeping under my desk. When I hit 30, I realized I'd built a successful company, but not much of a life." "And now?" Eliza asked, curious about this enigmatic man who spoke so little about himself. "Now I have an excellent executive team that allows me to focus on innovation rather than management. I travel when necessary but spend most of my time in Kyoto at our research campus." His eyes grew distant. "It's peaceful there. Traditional gardens, modern labs. A balance I've worked hard to achieve." Something in his voice, a hint of solitude carefully disguised, resonated with Eliza. Despite his success, she sensed that Kai Nakamura was as isolated in his way as she sometimes felt in hers. "What about you?" he asked. "Is there balance in your life, Eliza Chen? Or is it all emergency rooms and transatlantic flights?" The question was gently put, but struck with unexpected force. When had anyone last asked about her balance? Her fulfillment? Her colleagues respected her professionally. Her family loved her, but they all accepted her constant work as simply how Eliza is. "I'm working on it," she said finally, surprising herself with her honesty. "Sometimes I wonder if I've used my job as a shield against having a personal life." Kai's eyes met hers, and for a moment a current of recognition passed between them, two people who had built lives around work, around being needed, around competence rather than connection. The moment was broken by Eliza's phone, chiming insistently. She retrieved it from her pocket to find 7 messages from her brother, increasingly concerned about her failure to check in after landing. "I should go," she said, reluctance coloring her voice. "My brother's worried, and I need to find my actual room." "Of course." Kai stood, collected their empty cups. "May I escort you to the front desk?" "I believe we should inform them about their keycard issue before someone less understanding experiences a similar situation." In the elevator, Eliza found herself studying Kai's reflection in the polished doors. In another life, under different circumstances, he was exactly the kind of man she would be drawn to, intelligent, thoughtful, with that quiet intensity that suggested hidden depths. But this wasn't another life, this was a bizarre accident, an embarrassing story she'd tell at future family gatherings. Nothing more. At the front desk, the manager was appropriately mortified by the mix-up. Eliza's actual room was 2910, not 2901. The digits had been transposed in the system, and somehow her temporary key had been authorized for both rooms. "Ms. Chen, please accept our sincerest apologies. We'll upgrade you to our premium suite level and provide complimentary dining throughout your stay," the manager offered, clearly fearing a complaint. "That's really not necessary," Eliza began, but Kai interrupted smoothly. "I believe Ms. Chen would appreciate the gesture," he said, his tone polite but firm. "And perhaps a review of your security protocols would be advisable." The manager nodded vigorously. "Absolutely, Mr. Nakamura. Right away." As a staff member prepared to escort Eliza to her correct room, she turned to Kai, suddenly awkward. "Thank you for being so understanding about all this. Most people wouldn't have been so kind." "Most people haven't had the pleasure of your company at breakfast," he replied simply. Then, after a brief hesitation, "I'm hosting a small dinner in my suite this evening. Colleagues from the summit, nothing formal. Would you consider joining us? Say, 8 o'clock?" Eliza blinked, caught off guard. You're inviting me to dinner? After I broke into your room and stole your bed? Precisely because of that, Kai said, his eyes warming with that subtle smile. In my experience, the most interesting relationships begin unexpectedly. Relationships. The word hung between them, loaded with possibility. I should be free by 8, Eliza heard herself saying. My family obligations end around 7. Excellent. Kai handed her a business card. Simple white stock with just his name, and a phone number embossed in silver. Text me if your plans change. Otherwise, I'll see you this evening. As the elevator doors closed between them, Eliza stared at the card in her hand, wondering what exactly had just happened. She'd accidentally broken into a billionaire's hotel room and ended up with a dinner invitation instead of a security escort. In her correct room, which was lovely but lacked the panoramic views and understated elegance of Kai's penthouse, Eliza showered and changed, then headed to her brother's house in the suburbs. Throughout the day of family celebrations, her mind kept drifting back to coffee and croissants shared with a man whose quiet intensity had somehow cut through her carefully maintained professional distance. You seem distracted, James commented as they washed dishes after lunch. Is everything okay? Did the hotel sort out that mix-up you mentioned? Eliza considered telling him the full story but held back. James had always been protective, quick to look for problems, slow to see possibilities. And whatever was happening with Kai Nakamura, if anything was happening at all, felt too fragile, too new for her brother's well-intentioned scrutiny. Everything's fine, she assured him, just jet lag catching up with me. By 7:30, back at the hotel and dressed in the only semi-formal outfit she'd packed, a simple black dress with a mandarin collar that she'd brought for the baptism, Eliza found herself staring at her reflection, questioning her decision. Was she really going to have dinner with a man she'd known for less than 12 hours? A man whose bed she'd inadvertently commandeered? A tech billionaire who probably had supermodels and CEOs in his social circle? Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. No pressure, but I hope you'll still join us. The view from the terrace at sunset is particularly beautiful. Kalia? The simple message settled her nerves. This wasn't a date. It was dinner with a group of tech professionals. A networking opportunity, at most. And if a small part of her was disappointed by that framing, she chose to ignore it. At precisely 8 o'clock, Eliza knocked on the door of Suite 2901, heart beating a little faster than she'd like to admit. Kai opened the door himself, wearing dark trousers and a slate blue shirt that subtly highlighted the breadth of his shoulders. His eyes warmed as they took in Eliza standing nervously in the hallway. You came, he said simply, stepping aside to let her in. I said I would. She entered, then stopped short. The penthouse had been transformed. Soft lighting illuminated the space, and floor-to-ceiling windows revealed Vancouver ablaze with sunset colors. A small group of people, perhaps 6 or 7, mingled on the terrace, champagne flutes in hand. I hope the dress is appropriate, Eliza whispered, suddenly self-conscious. You said nothing formal, but you look perfect, Kai assured her, his voice low and sincere. The compliment wasn't elaborate or flowery, but something in his direct gaze made it more meaningful than effusive praise. He guided her toward the terrace with a light touch at the small of her back. Let me introduce you to everyone. The other guests were indeed colleagues from the summit. 2 software engineers from Seoul, a data scientist from London, a medical researcher from Toronto, and Kai's personal assistant, May, a sharp-eyed woman who gave Eliza a curious once-over before offering a polite smile. And how do you two know each other? Asked the researcher, a woman named Daniela with a lilting accent. Before Eliza could formulate a diplomatic response, Kai answered smoothly. Ms. Chen is a trauma nurse from Singapore General. Her insights on our monitoring system have been invaluable. It wasn't quite a lie, but it certainly omitted the more unconventional aspects of their meeting. Eliza shot him a grateful look. Conversation flowed easily among the small group. These were brilliant minds discussing groundbreaking work, yet there was a refreshing lack of ego. Eliza found herself drawn into debates about medical ethics and AI development, contributing her frontline perspective to theoretical discussions. The problem isn't the technology, she explained to Daniela as they moved inside for dinner. It's the human element. Doctors and nurses need to trust to the system while maintaining their own critical thinking. That balance is hard to achieve. Exactly what I've been saying, Kai interjected from across the table, his eyes finding hers. technology should enhance human capability, not replace human judgment. Dinner was served at a glass table overlooking the city. Seared scallops, tender Wagyu beef, and seasonal vegetables prepared with Japanese minimalist precision. The wine was exceptional, though Eliza noticed Kai himself drank sparingly. As plates were cleared and conversation continued, Eliza felt a strange sense of belonging. Despite the wealth and accomplishment surrounding her, there was an authenticity to this gathering that put her at ease. These people cared about their work, about making a difference. It was a language she understood. "So, Eliza," May asked during a lull in conversation, "what brings you to Vancouver? Surely not just our little tech summit?" "Family," Eliza explained. "My niece's baptism. My brother moved here 5 years ago. And how long will you stay?" This from Kai, who had been quietly observing her throughout dinner. "Just through the weekend. I fly back Monday morning." Something flickered in Kai's eyes. Disappointment? "Such a short visit. The ER doesn't run itself," Eliza said with a small smile. "Though sometimes I think it might do better without us getting in the way." As the evening progressed, guests began to depart. The engineers had an early flight. Daniela had promised to video call her children before bedtime. Soon, only May remained, efficiently coordinating with hotel staff to clear away dinner. "I should be going too," Eliza said, though reluctance colored her voice. "Thank you for including me. It was unexpected." "The best things often are," Kai replied. He walked her to the door, away from May's watchful eyes. "Would you have dinner with me tomorrow? Just the two of us this time?" Eliza hesitated. "I promised my brother I'd babysit tomorrow evening. They haven't had a night out since the baby was born. Another time then." His acceptance was gracious, without pressure. "Actually," Eliza found herself saying, "I'm free for lunch, if that works for you." The smile that transformed his face was worth the momentary boldness. "Lunch would be perfect. I know a place away from the tourist areas. Authentic dim sum. Would noon work?" They agreed to meet in the lobby, and as Eliza returned to her own room, she found herself smiling. Whatever this was, friendship, professional networking, or something more, it felt refreshingly honest. Her phone rang just as she was kicking off her shoes. "James, checking in. How was your evening?" he asked after confirming she'd returned for babysitting duty tomorrow. "Surprisingly nice," Eliza admitted. "I had dinner with some medical technology developers. Very interesting discussions. Only you would find work talk interesting on vacation," James teased. "You need more balance, Liz. All work and no play." "I'm working on it," she replied, echoing what she'd told Kai that morning. But this time, she might actually mean it. The next morning, Eliza woke with a sense of anticipation she hadn't felt in years. She dressed carefully in slim jeans and a soft sweater, applied minimal makeup, and left, her hair loose around her shoulders. At noon, she found Kai waiting in the lobby, dressed casually in dark jeans and a charcoal cashmere sweater that made him look younger, more approachable. His eyes lit up when he saw her. "Ready for the best dim sum in Vancouver?" he asked, guiding her toward the exit where a sleek but understated car waited with a driver. "Lead the way," Eliza replied, sliding into the back seat beside him. They drove to a nondescript building in a predominantly Chinese neighborhood far from the hotel district. Inside, the restaurant was packed with local families, the noise level suggesting popularity rather than refinement. Kai spoke briefly in Mandarin to an elderly woman who beamed at him in recognition and led them to a small table in the corner. "You speak Mandarin?" Eliza asked, impressed. "Passably," Kai admitted. "My mother was Chinese. She insisted I learn, though my father's Japanese was always more natural to me." "My Mandarin is terrible," Eliza confessed. "My parents tried, but I was stubborn. Now I regret not paying attention." "It's never too late to learn," Kai said, then translated the characters on the menu for her, explaining regional differences in dumpling styles with unexpected enthusiasm. The food arrived in bamboo steamers, delicate hargao, savory siumai, fluffy char siu bao. Kai deftly served her using communal chopsticks, a courtesy that spoke of traditional upbringing. Between bites, they talked, really talked, in a way Eliza rarely experienced. Kai described growing up between two cultures, never quite fitting in either Japan or Singapore, where his family had moved for his father's work. Eliza shared the pressure of being raised by traditional parents who viewed medicine as the only acceptable career path. "Did you always want to be a nurse?" Kai asked, pouring her more tea. Actually, I wanted to be a wildlife photographer, Eliza admitted with a laugh. I had this dream of traveling to remote places, documenting endangered species. My parents were horrified. What stopped you? Practicality, security, fear of disappointing them. She shrugged. And I do love nursing. It's meaningful work, but not the same as your original dream. Few of us get to live our original dreams, Eliza pointed out. What about you? Did you always want to build a tech empire? Kai's expression grew thoughtful. I wanted to create tools that mattered. My grandmother died from a misdiagnosis when I was 14. I thought technology could prevent such mistakes. He paused. The empire, as you call it, was incidental. Their conversation flowed from personal history to global healthcare challenges to favorite books. Eliza couldn't remember the last time she'd spoken so freely with someone, especially someone she'd just met. There was something about Kai's attentive silence, his thoughtful responses, that invited openness. As they finished their meal, Kai checked his watch reluctantly. I have a video conference at 3. May I drive you somewhere? Your brother's house, perhaps. That would be nice, Eliza said, providing James's address as they returned to the car. During the drive, a comfortable silence fell between them. Eliza watched the city pass by, acutely aware of Kai beside her, his presence both calming and exciting in a way she couldn't quite define. Thank you for lunch, she said as they neared James's suburban neighborhood. It was perfect. Thank you for your company, Kai replied. Then, after a brief hesitation, I fly to Kyoto tomorrow evening. The statement hung between them, laden with unspoken implications. Such a short time. Such an unlikely connection. I leave Monday, Eliza reminded him, unsure what else to say. Different continents, Kai observed, his voice neutral. Different worlds, she added softly. The car pulled up outside James's tidy bungalow. Eliza gathered her purse, suddenly reluctant to leave. I've enjoyed our time together, Eliza, Kai said, his formality not quite masking the warmth in his eyes. More than I expected to. So have I, she admitted. It's been surprising. Life's best moments usually are. He handed her another business card, this one embossed with both company information and personal contact details. If you're ever in Kyoto, or Singapore for that matter, I'll be in touch, Eliza promised, tucking the card carefully into her wallet. She impulsively added, and if you're ever in need of emergency medical care in Singapore, Kai's laugh was rich and genuine. I'll be sure to request you specifically. She stepped out of the car, waving as it pulled away. Standing on her brother's sidewalk, Eliza felt oddly bereft, as if something precious was slipping through her fingers before she'd properly grasped it. Who was that? James's voice startled her from behind. A friend, Eliza said, turning to face her brother's curious expression. From the technology dinner I mentioned. James raised an eyebrow. Some friend. That car costs more than my house. Eliza brushed past him toward the front door. Don't be dramatic. And don't you have a date to prepare for? I thought that's why I'm here. Inside, her sister-in-law Sarah was already dressed for their evening out, bouncing baby Lily on her hip. Oh, thank goodness you're here. We haven't had a night to ourselves in months. Eliza gladly took her niece, inhaling the sweet baby scent that always made her heart contract with a complicated mix of joy and longing. Go, have fun, we'll be fine. After James and Sarah left, Eliza settled into the peaceful rhythm of caring for Lily, feeding, bathing, singing lullabies. As she rocked the baby to sleep, she found herself wondering what Kai was doing. Preparing for his return to Japan? Working on some revolutionary new technology? Thinking of her. She placed Lily gently in her crib and silently chided herself for daydreaming like a teenager. Whatever connection she'd felt with Kai Nakamura was a vacation aberration, nothing more. Tomorrow, he'd return to his world of cutting-edge innovation and global influence, while she'd go back to 12-hour shifts and crash carts. Different continents. Different worlds. Yet as she tidied the kitchen, she kept returning to the business card in her wallet, running her fingers over the embossed characters of his name. When James and Sarah returned, full of gratitude and stories from their date night, Eliza accepted their offer to stay over rather than return to the hotel. The guest room was cozy, with family photos lining the walls and a handmade quilt on the bed. As she settled under the covers, her phone chimed with a text from an unknown number. The conference ran late. I find myself wishing for simpler conversation. Are you still awake? Kit. Eliza smiled into the darkness and replied, babysitting duty complete. Just settling in at my brother's guest room. His response came quickly. How was it? Peaceful. Babies have a way of putting everything in perspective. There was a longer pause before. I never had children. One of many life experiences business success doesn't provide. The confession felt significant, a vulnerability from someone who seemed so composed. Eliza typed, it's never too late for new experiences. A philosophy I'm beginning to appreciate more, came his reply. Then, my car will collect you at 9 a.m. tomorrow if you're willing. One last Vancouver experience before we both depart. Eliza hesitated only briefly before responding. I'll be ready. She fell asleep with the phone beside her pillow, dreaming of dim sum in distant places. The next morning, James raised his eyebrows when Eliza mentioned she had plans. Another date with your mysterious friend? He teased over breakfast. It's not a date, Eliza protested. We're just connecting over mutual interests. Uh-huh. James's skepticism was clear. And what mutual interests might those be? Healthcare technology, professional development, cultural exchange. The excuses sounded weak even to her own ears. Sarah, more perceptive than her husband, placed a hand on Eliza's arm. It's okay to enjoy someone's company, Liz. You've spent years taking care of others. Maybe it's time someone took care of you for a change. It's not like that, Eliza insisted, though a part of her wished it could be. He leaves for Japan tonight. I go back to Singapore tomorrow. This is just... She struggled to define what this was. Serendipity. Sarah supplied with a gentle smile. Sometimes the universe arranges unexpected meetings. At 9 precisely, a sleek black car pulled up outside. Eliza hugged James, Sarah, and baby Lily goodbye, promising to return for a proper farewell that evening. The driver opened the door to reveal Kai already seated inside, dressed in casual weekend attire, dark jeans and a light sweater, a contrast to his business persona. Good morning, he greeted her, eyes crinkling with that subtle smile she'd come to anticipate. I hope you don't mind an adventure today. I'm intrigued, Eliza admitted, settling beside him. Where are we going? Somewhere that reminds me why technology isn't everything. They drove north, leaving the city behind and climbing into the coastal mountains. Kai pointed out landmarks, sharing bits of local history he'd learned during previous visits. Eventually, they turned onto a winding road that ended at a small parking area beside a trailhead. I hope you don't mind hiking, Kai said, retrieving a backpack from the trunk. It's not strenuous, but the destination is worth the effort. The trail wound through ancient cedar and hemlock trees, their massive trunks reaching skyward. Dappled sunlight filtered through the canopy, creating shifting patterns on the forest floor. They walked in comfortable silence, occasionally stopping to admire a particularly impressive tree or listen to birdsong. After about 40 minutes, the forest opened to reveal a stunning waterfall cascading into a crystal-clear pool. The sound of rushing water filled the air, drowning out all traces of civilization. It's beautiful, Eliza breathed, captivated by the raw power and serenity of the place. This is where I come to remember what matters, Kai said, guiding her to a flat rock overlooking the pool. In technology, we're always chasing the next innovation, the next breakthrough. Places like this remind me that some things are timeless. He unpacked a simple picnic, fresh bread, local cheese, fruit, and a thermos of hot tea. They ate while watching sunlight create rainbows in the mist of the falls. My grandmother would have loved this place, Kai said quietly. She taught me to find beauty in simplicity. I think I lost sight of that for many years. What changed? Eliza asked. Burnout. 5 years ago, I collapsed during a board meeting. Exhaustion, the doctor said. I took 3 months off, spent time at a monastery in Kyoto. His eyes remained on the waterfall. I learned that success without meaning is just noise. Eliza nodded, understanding more than he might realize. In the ER, we see people on their worst days, often facing mortality for the first time. It changes your perspective on what constitutes a real emergency. Is that why you're considering pediatrics? A change in perspective? Partly, she admitted, but also because children still believe in possibility. Adults come to us broken, often by their own choices. Children come with hope, even in dire circumstances. Kai turned to face her fully. You're remarkable, Eliza Chen. Do you know that? The directness of his gaze made her breath catch. I'm just a nurse doing my job. No, he said firmly. You're someone who sees meaning beyond routine, who questions her path while walking it with integrity. That's rare. A blush warmed her cheeks. You make me sound better than I am. I see you clearly, Kai countered, his voice gentle but certain, perhaps more clearly than you see yourself. The moment stretched between them, charged with unspoken possibilities. Eliza found herself wondering what would happen if she leaned forward, closed the small distance between them. Would he meet her halfway? Would those serious eyes soften further? Instead, she looked back at the waterfall. What time is your flight tonight? 8, Kai replied, accepting the shift in conversation. And yours tomorrow? Early. 6 a.m. They packed up the remains of their picnic and began the return journey. The walk back seemed shorter somehow, as if the forest itself recognized their limited time and compressed the path. In the car, heading back toward the city, Kai asked, Would you consider visiting Kyoto someday? Our research campus has a medical training program that might interest you. Eliza glanced at him, trying to read between the lines. Was this a professional invitation or something more personal? I've always wanted to see Japan, she answered carefully. Cherry blossom season especially. March and April are beautiful, he agreed. The campus gardens are particularly stunning then. They lapsed into silence again, both aware of the countdown to separation ticking in the background. When they reached James's house, Kai surprised her by exiting the car with her. I wanted to say goodbye properly, he explained, standing on the sidewalk. My afternoon is filled with preparations for departure. Of course, Eliza said, fighting unexpected disappointment. You must have so much to do, Eliza. The way he said her name, softly, almost reverently, made her meet his eyes. These past 2 days have been unexpected in the best possible way. They have, she agreed, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm not good at... He paused, uncharacteristically hesitant. Connections. Personal ones. My work has always taken precedence. I understand, Eliza said, and she truly did. Hadn't her own life followed a similar pattern? But I would like to see you again, if that's something you might want as well. The carefully framed invitation hung between them. Eliza knew this was a moment of choice. She could politely deflect, acknowledge the impossibility of their different lives, or she could step toward possibility. I'd like that, she said simply. Relief softened his features. Then we'll find a way. Distance is just geography. And different worlds? She asked, echoing their earlier conversation. Maybe not as different as they appear. He reached out, his fingers just brushing hers in a touch, so light it might have been imagined. Safe travels home, Eliza Chen. Until we meet again. She watched his car disappear down the street, a strange mixture of sadness and anticipation swirling in her chest. Part of her insisted this was fantasy, a vacation connection that would fade once real life resumed. But another part, perhaps the part that had once dreamed of photographing wilderness rather than monitoring vital signs, whispered that some connections transcended ordinary constraints. Inside, James took one look at her face and asked, So who exactly is this friend of yours? It's complicated, Eliza replied, which was perhaps the most honest answer she could give. That evening, as her family slept and Eliza packed for her early departure, her phone chimed with one final message. Boarding now. Thank you for making Vancouver memorable for reasons beyond business. The cherry blossoms await your arrival. Care. She held the phone against her heart, smiling into the darkness. Whatever tomorrow brought, whatever challenges lay between Vancouver and whatever might come next, Eliza knew one thing with certainty. She would see those cherry blossoms. 3 months after returning to Singapore, Eliza found herself standing in the trauma bay, hands steady as she inserted an IV into a motorcycle accident victim. Around her, the familiar controlled chaos of the emergency room. Doctors barking orders, monitors beeping, the metallic scent of blood mixing with antiseptic, created a symphony she had navigated for a decade. BP dropping to 90/60ths, she announced, eyes on the monitor. Pulse 120 and thready. The attending physician nodded, continuing his rapid assessment. Let's get 2 units of ONEG and prep for. A soft chime from the patient monitoring system interrupted him. The screen flashed with a medication warning. Potential interaction between the patient's home medications and what they were about to administer. Nakamura's system just flagged a contraindication, Eliza said, adjusting the IV drip. Patients on blood thinners. The doctor changed course immediately, ordering alternative medications. Crisis averted. Hours later, as Eliza changed out of her scrubs, her colleague Maya leaned against a locker with a knowing smile. That's the third time this week the AI system has caught something critical. I'm starting to think it's showing off for you, Eliza rolled her eyes. Very funny. Seriously though, didn't you meet the creator? At that conference in Vancouver? Briefly, Eliza replied, the understatement making her smile inwardly. 3 months of daily texts, weekly video calls, and a shared digital journal didn't qualify as briefly, but she kept those details private. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. Probably James checking in. He'd been even more overprotective since she'd returned from Vancouver, convinced she was hiding something important from him. Which, technically she was. But the message wasn't from James. Arriving Singapore 7 p.m. tomorrow. Dinner at 9? Eliza's heart skipped. They'd discussed his upcoming business trip, but dates had remained fluid. Now it was real. Tomorrow she would see Kai again, in person, not through a screen. Everything okay? Maya asked, noticing her expression. Fine, Eliza managed, slipping the phone back into her pocket. Just plans for tomorrow. Maya raised an eyebrow. Hot date? Just dinner with a friend, Eliza deflected, though the flutter in her stomach suggested otherwise. That night in her apartment, a small but comfortable space near the hospital, Eliza found herself standing before her closet with uncharacteristic indecision. What does one wear to reunite with a person who had become strangely essential to her life, despite having spent only 2 days in their physical presence? Their connection had deepened in unexpected ways since Vancouver. Their conversations ranged from healthcare innovations to childhood memories, from philosophy to favorite foods. Kai had shared his struggles balancing business demands with personal values. Eliza had confessed her growing uncertainty about her career path. There was something uniquely liberating about connecting with someone who existed outside her established life. Someone who saw her not as she had always been, but as she might become. Her phone chimed with another message. Forgot to mention, dress comfortably. Nothing formal. Sleep well. K. Getfo. Eliza smiled at his thoughtfulness, then typed, Looking forward to tomorrow. Safe travels. She settled on a simple dress in deep teal. Casual enough for comfort, but elegant enough for dinner. As she hung it on her closet door, a thought surfaced that she'd been avoiding. What exactly were they doing? 3 months of increasingly personal communication, and neither had put a label on whatever was developing between them. Friends? Certainly. Professional contacts? That too. But there was an undercurrent of something more, unspoken but undeniable. The question was whether either of them was brave enough to acknowledge it. The next evening, Eliza left work early for perhaps the first time in her career, ignoring knowing looks from colleagues as she declined their usual post-shift coffee ritual. At home, she showered away the hospital scent, dried her hair into soft waves, and applied light makeup, more than her usual nothing, less than trying too hard. At 8:45, her phone alerted her to a car waiting outside. The same sleek vehicle from Vancouver now seemed oddly out of place on her modest street. The driver opened the door to reveal Kai sitting inside, looking somehow both exactly as she remembered and entirely new. He wore dark trousers and a simple linen shirt, his posture relaxed yet alert. When he saw her, his eyes lit with recognition and something warmer. Eliza, he said, the way he spoke her name making it sound like both greeting and revelation. Hello, Kai. She slid into the seat beside him, suddenly shy, despite months of daily communication. You look beautiful, he said simply, his directness unchanged. You look tired, she replied with professional assessment. Long flight? His laugh was soft and genuine, always the nurse. Yes, turbulence over the Pacific. But seeing you is the perfect remedy. The car moved smoothly through Singapore's evening traffic. Eliza expected they might head toward the upscale restaurants downtown, but instead they turned toward the coast. Where are we going? She asked. Somewhere that reminded me of you, Kai answered enigmatically. They arrived at East Coast Park, where locals gathered for evening picnics and sunset views across the water. The driver stopped near a quieter section, and Kai led Eliza toward the beach where a small setup awaited. A private table illuminated by lanterns, positioned perfectly to catch the sea breeze while maintaining privacy. I thought you might prefer this to a formal restaurant, Kai explained as staff from a nearby restaurant discreetly served local seafood dishes. You mentioned once that you come here to think. The thoughtfulness of the gesture, remembering a detail from one of their many conversations, creating something personal rather than impressive, touched Eliza deeply. It's perfect, she said truthfully. Though I'm surprised you remembered such a small detail. I remember everything about our conversations, Kai admitted, his usual reserve softening. They've become important to me. They settled into dinner, the initial awkwardness of physical reunion melting away as conversation flowed naturally, picking up threads from recent messages as if there had been no distance between them. How long are you in Singapore? Eliza asked as they finished their meal, the question she'd been avoiding because she didn't want to hear the answer. 2 weeks, Kai replied. We're establishing a regional headquarters here, the medical AI division specifically. That's longer than your usual visits, Eliza observed, trying to keep her tone neutral. Yes. He met her eyes directly. I requested to lead this project personally. The implication hung between them, neither willing to state the obvious, that Singapore's strategic business importance might not be the only reason for his extended stay. As they walked along the beach after dinner, shoes in hand and feet in the cool sand, Kai asked, Have you thought more about the pediatric position? Over the past months, Eliza had mentioned the opportunity to transition from emergency medicine to the children's hospital, a change that would mean more regular hours but less of the adrenaline-fueled intensity she'd built her identity around. I have, she admitted. I'm meeting with the department head next week. It feels like the right time for a change. Because of burnout? Kai asked perceptively. Partly. Eliza watched the moonlight on the water, but also because I'm starting to want more balance. More possibility for... She hesitated. For what? Kai prompted gently. For life beyond the hospital, she finished. I've defined myself by crisis management for so long. Maybe there's more to me than that. Kai nodded, understanding in his eyes. I've been having similar thoughts about identity, about what success really means. They stopped walking, turning to face each other in the soft darkness. Eliza? Kai began, his voice low and serious. These past months, our conversations. Her phone burst into the emergency ringtone she'd assigned to the hospital. Eliza grimaced apologetically as she answered. Multiple casualty incident, her supervisor explained without preamble. Bus accident on the expressway. We need all hands. How quickly can you get here? 20 minutes. Eliza replied automatically, already calculating the fastest route. She ended the call and turned to Kai. I have to go. Mass casualty event. Of course. He nodded immediately. I'll have the driver take you directly. In the car, racing toward the hospital with lights flashing, Kai had apparently instructed his driver to use discretion, but hurry. Eliza found herself caught between two worlds. The emergency pulling her forward, the unfinished conversation with Kai pulling her back. I'm sorry, she said, as they neared the hospital. Never apologize for saving lives, Kai replied. It's who you are. The simplicity of his acceptance steadied her. Can I call you tomorrow? I'll be here, he promised, as the car stopped at the emergency entrance. Go do what you do best. The next 12 hours passed in a blur of triaging, stabilizing, and treating the 27 victims of the highway collision. Eliza moved from patient to patient with practiced efficiency, her personal thoughts locked away behind professional focus. It was nearly noon the following day when she finally left the hospital, exhausted but satisfied that they had lost no one, despite the severity of injuries. As she stepped outside, she was surprised to find Kai's car waiting. The driver handed her a small package and a note. Thought you might need this after your shift. Rest well. Dinner tonight if you're up to it. K. Inside the package, she found a container of still-warm congee from her favorite local stall, a bottle of coconut water for hydration, and a small jar of lavender balm, something she had once mentioned using for headaches after long shifts. The thoughtfulness of the gesture brought unexpected tears to her eyes. How long had it been since someone had anticipated her needs this way? Had remembered the small details that made up her life? At home, after showering away the hospital scent and collapsing into bed, Eliza texted Kai. Thank you for breakfast. Rain check on dinner? Need sleep, but would love to see you tomorrow. His reply came immediately. Rest is non-negotiable. Tomorrow is perfect. Sweet dreams, Eliza. She fell asleep smiling, the phone still in her hand. The next evening, rested and rejuvenated, Eliza met Kai at a quiet Japanese restaurant in the city. Over delicate sashimi and warm sake, they finally returned to their interrupted conversation. You were saying something important, Eliza prompted, before the emergency call. Kai set down his cup, his expression serious. I was going to say that our connection these past months has become significant to me. More than I expected. More than I've experienced before. The directness that was so characteristic of him still had the power to take her breath away. No games. No subtle implications. Just honest sentiment. For me too, Eliza admitted. But I've been afraid to examine it too closely. Why? His question was gentle but unflinching. Because examining it means acknowledging the complications. Different countries. Different careers. Different lives. Kai nodded slowly. Valid concerns, but perhaps surmountable ones. How? Eliza challenged softly. I've been considering establishing a more permanent presence in Singapore, he said carefully. The regional headquarters provides a logical business reason. Eliza's heart quickened. And is there a personal reason as well? You know there is. His gaze held her steadily. The question is whether that reason is sufficient for both of us to consider adjustments to our established paths. That's a very rational way of asking if I'd be interested in exploring a relationship. Eliza observed with a small smile. Kai's expression lightened. Rationality is my default, but what I feel for you, Eliza, that transcends logic. The confession, so unlike his usual measured speech, touched something deep within her. I've been thinking about us, too, she admitted. About possibilities I'd stopped considering years ago. Such as partnership. Companionship. A future that includes someone else's dreams alongside my own. Over the next 2 weeks, they created a bubble of shared time within their busy lives. Dinners after Eliza's shifts, morning walks before Kai's meetings, weekend explorations of Singapore's hidden corners. They visited the botanical gardens where Kai identified Japanese plants that reminded him of home. They explored the hawker centers, where Eliza introduced him to her favorite local dishes. They discovered a small bookshop that became their regular Sunday morning destination, each selecting readings for the other. It was during one such morning, browsing between shelves of well-loved books, that Kai handed Eliza a small volume of Japanese poetry. This reminded me of something I've been meaning to ask you, he said casually. Eliza opened the book to where a bookmark had been placed. Inside was not a bookmark at all, but a plane ticket to Kyoto, dated 3 weeks in the future. She looked up, questioning. Cherry blossom season, Kai explained, his expression a mixture of hope and uncertainty, rare for someone usually so composed. I thought perhaps you might want to see the campus gardens, as we discussed. A week's visit, no pressure, just an invitation. Eliza stared at the ticket, emotions swirling. It wasn't just an invitation to visit Japan. It was an invitation to step definitively from one life toward another, from established patterns toward unpredictable possibility. I'd need to request time off, she said slowly. With the transition to pediatrics pending, timing is complicated. Disappointment flickered across his face before his features smoothed into understanding. Of course. It was just a thought. The invitation remains open, whenever timing works for you. His grace in accepting what he perceived as rejection only confirmed what Eliza already knew, that this man, with his quiet strength and profound respect for her autonomy, represented something she hadn't allowed herself to want in years. Kai, she said, taking his hand. I wasn't saying no. I was thinking practically about logistics. I want to come to Kyoto. I want to see your world, just as you've experienced mine. The relief and joy that transformed his face made her heart swell. Then we'll make it work, he said simply. Whatever adjustments are needed. That evening, as they walked along the Singapore River, lights reflecting on the dark water, Eliza found herself contemplating the strange journey that had brought them together. A mistaken room key. An exhausted nurse. A tech billionaire's unexpected compassion. Do you ever think about how improbable this is? She asked. If I hadn't been so tired, if you hadn't been so understanding. If the hotel's security system hadn't malfunctioned. Kai added with a smile. Yes, the statistical improbability has occurred to me. And yet, here we are. Here we are, he agreed, his hand finding hers. Perhaps some connections are meant to transcend probability. 3 weeks later, Eliza stood beneath a cascade of pink cherry blossoms on the grounds of the Nakamura Innovations Kyoto campus. The ancient imperial city spread out below, a harmonious blend of traditional temples and modern structures, much like the research facility itself with its traditional gardens surrounding cutting-edge laboratories. Kai watched her take it all in, his expression content in a way she'd never seen in Singapore or through video calls. Here, surrounded by his creation yet connected to his heritage, he seemed most authentic. "It's more beautiful than I imagined," Eliza said truthfully. "I understand now why you keep returning here. Beauty and purpose and balance," Kai agreed, "something I've sought in all aspects of life." They walked through the campus gardens, Kai pointing out rare plant species and architectural details with quiet pride. Researchers nodded respectfully as they passed, clearly accustomed to seeing their founder but curious about his companion. "They're wondering who I am," Eliza observed with amusement. "Let them wonder," Kai replied with uncharacteristic mischief. "It's good for brilliant minds to encounter mysteries occasionally." In the afternoon, while Kai attended a brief meeting, Dr. Tanaka, head of medical applications, gave Eliza a tour of the healthcare division. The innovative technology she'd used in Singapore's emergency room was being expanded, refined, enhanced with new capabilities. "We would value your perspective as a frontline practitioner," Dr. Tanaka mentioned casually, "if you ever considered a consulting role." The suggestion lingered in Eliza's mind as she rejoined Kai for dinner at a traditional ryokan in the city's historic district. Over multiple small courses served with exquisite attention to detail, she shared her impressions of the facility. Dr. Tanaka suggested I might consult on implementation protocols. She mentioned between bites of perfectly prepared sashimi. Did he? Kai's tone was carefully neutral. "And what did you think of that idea?" "It's intriguing," Eliza admitted, "bridging clinical experience with technological development. Creating systems that truly serve patients and providers." "You would be exceptional at it," Kai said with simple certainty. "Your practical experience combined with your empathy for both patients and healthcare workers. That perspective is invaluable." "It would mean dividing my time," Eliza pointed out, "between Singapore and here." "Yes," Kai agreed, watching her closely. "It would." The implication hung between them, that perhaps such division wasn't a drawback but an opportunity, a way to bridge their worlds rather than choosing between them. Later that night, as they strolled through a temple garden illuminated for nighttime viewing, cherry blossoms glowing ethereally in strategic lighting, Eliza found herself at a moment of decision. "I've been thinking about what you said in Singapore," she began, "about adjustments to established paths." Kai stopped walking, giving her his full attention. "I've spent my entire adult life in one place, doing one thing," Eliza continued. "I've defined myself by stability, by being the person others could rely on to never change, never falter." "You've been the foundation for many," Kai acknowledged. "Your family, your patients, your colleagues." "Yes, but foundations can be limiting as well as supportive." She met his gaze directly. "I'm ready for change, Kai. Not abandoning what I've built, but expanding it, including new possibilities." "What possibilities did you have in mind?" he asked, his voice soft in the night air. "Professional ones. The consulting role has genuine appeal. And personal ones." She took a deep breath. "A relationship that might require creativity and compromise, but offers something I've never allowed myself to want." Kai took her hands in his touch warm in the cool evening. "And what is that, Eliza?" "Partnership," she said simply. "Equal, respectful, challenging in the best ways. The kind that makes both people more fully themselves, not less." The smile that transformed his face was worth every moment of uncertainty she'd navigated to reach this point. "I want that too," he said. "With you, specifically, and only you." As cherry blossoms drifted around them, illuminated against the night sky like stars falling to earth, Kai drew her closer. "I believe we can create something exceptional together, Eliza Chen. Not despite our differences, but because of them." "Different worlds," she murmured, echoing their earlier conversation, "that perhaps aren't so different after all." "Just as you're not simply a nurse, and I'm not simply a tech developer," Kai agreed, "we're more complex than our professional identities. We're people who found each other through an accidental trespass," Eliza said with a smile, "and discovered something neither was looking for." "Not an accident," Kai corrected gently. "A fortunate alignment of improbable events." 6 months later, Eliza stood in the pediatric intensive care unit of Singapore Children's Hospital, monitoring a young patient whose complex condition had challenged the medical team for weeks. The Nakamura monitoring system chimed softly, highlighting a subtle pattern in the child's vitals that suggested a new treatment approach. "Dr. Wu," she called to the attending physician. "The AI is suggesting we consider an enzyme imbalance." The doctor reviewed the flag data, eyebrows rising. "Brilliant. Let's run the tests to confirm." Hours later, as the new treatment plan showed promising initial results, Eliza checked her watch. Nearly time for her video conference with the Kyoto team about the next-generation monitoring system, a project she now co-led as head of clinical implementation. Her life had transformed in ways she couldn't have imagined that fateful night in Vancouver. 3 days each week at the Children's Hospital, 2 days consulting with medical technology developers, and regular trips to Kyoto, where Kai had given her a falter, key to his traditional home in the historic district. It wasn't a conventional arrangement. They maintained residences in both Singapore and Japan, creating a transnational life that honored both their individual needs and their shared connection. Technology bridged the gaps when physical presence couldn't, though they found themselves orchestrating their schedules to minimize time apart. As Eliza gathered her things to leave for the day, her phone chimed with Kai's personal tone. "Meeting canceled. Taking the evening flight to Singapore instead of tomorrow morning. Dinner at home?" Home, the word warmed her. Their Singapore apartment, a spacious place near the botanical gardens that they had chosen together, had become a true sanctuary, filled with books they both loved, art they had discovered together, and photographs from their growing collection of shared experiences. "Perfect," she replied. "I'm bringing home the soup you like from the Hawker Center." That evening, as they sat on their balcony watching sunset paint the Singapore skyline in gold and crimson, Kai took her hand. "I've been thinking," he began, his tone thoughtful. "A dangerous pastime," Eliza teased gently. Indeed, his smile was easy, relaxed in a way he rarely showed the world beyond their private sphere. "I've been thinking about beginnings, about how some of the best things in life start in unexpected ways." "Like accidentally sleeping in a billionaire's bed?" Eliza suggested with a laugh. "Precisely like that." Kai's expression grew more serious. "That mistake, or alignment of improbable events, as I prefer to think of it, changed everything for me. Before you, Eliza, I was successful but incomplete, accomplished but solitary. And now?" she prompted softly. "Now I understand that true innovation isn't limited to technology. It's also about how we create our lives, how we forge connections that transcend conventional boundaries." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small box. "Which brings me to a question I've been considering for some time." Eliza's breath caught as he opened the box to reveal not a traditional diamond ring, but a band of polished wood inlaid with precious metals in a pattern reminiscent of cherry blossoms. "This is carved from a fallen cherry tree on the Kyoto campus," Kai explained. "The silver represents Singapore's waters, the gold our shared future. Wherever we are, Japan, Singapore, or somewhere yet undiscovered, I want us to be there together." Tears blurred Eliza's vision as the significance of the gesture washed over her. This wasn't just a proposal. It was a promise to continue their creative partnership, to build a life that honored both their individual paths and their shared journey. "Eliza Chen," Kai said formally, "would you do me the honor of continuing this improbable adventure as my wife?" "Yes," she answered without hesitation. "1,000 times, yes." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, Eliza marveled at how a simple mistake, a wrong room key, an exhausted nurse, a compassionate response, had set in motion a chain of events that transformed both their lives. "To fortunate alignments," Kai said, raising his teacup in a toast, "and to making room for unexpected possibilities," Eliza added, her heart full with the knowledge that sometimes the most profound journeys begin with a single step in the wrong direction. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.